Thanks for joining me again. There was some encouraging news out of two county council committee meetings this week. On Wednesday, the council's Economic Development Committee advanced a bill to create an 18-month moratorium on the review of data centers. The effect of a legislative moratorium is similar to the 6-month moratorium on data center permits I signed a few weeks ago, and will apply to the current proposed data center in Dickerson. According to Council President Natalie Fonda-Gonzalez, who chairs the Econ Committee, the bill will proceed to full council for a work session and action on Tuesday, July 28th. Separately, the Planning and Housing and Parks Committee considered ZTA 2601. That's important because it will help define what a data center is to eliminate confusion and close the loopholes that would allow companies to skirt any new regulations. Establishing clear definitions of what data centers are and what kind are going to be allowed here will help set the kind of reasonable limits we need. We are awaiting both local and state analysis to make the best decisions about data centers. I look forward to seeing that information in the coming weeks so we can continue pursuing the right policies for Montgomery County before any permits are finalized. This week, the former head of Montgomery County Republican Party led a group that delivered petition signatures to trigger a referendum to change our county charter, the equivalent of our Constitution. I want to respond directly to Control Montgomery Spending's campaign proposal to cap county spending increases at the rate of general inflation, because I think people deserve an honest explanation of what that would mean for Montgomery County. Their proposal ignores a basic economic reality. The cost of building and maintaining comprehensive public services and infrastructure has nothing to do with the rate of general inflation. It's a completely different number, unfortunately. And right now, thanks in large part to the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, construction costs are significantly higher, for example, than the 3.5% annual inflation rate we saw reported in June. To have the same purchasing power for the infrastructure that we had back in FY 2009, the county would have needed to issue more than $550 million in bonds annually. We're currently capped at $300 million. We're already behind and only building about half as much as we could have built less than 20 years ago. Tying us to the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, wouldn't hold spending steady. Instead, it would lock in a chronic underinvestment and guarantee we can never catch up. If you wanted to sink Montgomery County, this would be the strategy to do that. The most immediate victims of this kind of cap would be our kids. The Board of Education has a $3.72 billion budget for FY27, and we all know that less than what was requested just to begin addressing our aging school buildings. The schools actually came forward with over $2 billion in needed repairs for school buildings. And this is not even a fraction of it. Of that $200 or $300 million of bonding that we're doing, we're talking about less than 2/3 of it going into the schools. A hard spending cap means students remain in obsolete facilities that cost more to maintain each year. And that's not fiscal responsibility. That's just kicking the can down the road. It also puts us at a competitive disadvantage. Everybody bemoans our competitors in Northern Virginia for using aggressive funding models, including special taxing districts, to advance transportation and infrastructure. This would leave us with our hands tied behind our backs. We would never be able to do that. The argument that this saves money is simply backward. When you delay replacing aging HVAC systems, roofs, electrical infrastructure, you don't save money. You end up spending dramatically more on maintenance for systems that should have been replaced years ago. Our current spending plan is designed to replace those systems systematically, which actually lowers operating costs over time through better energy efficiency. We also have real public safety needs that can't wait. A new Justice Center, a White Flint Fire Station, a replacement for our outdated 4th District Police Station, and replacement of more than 1,300 units of body armor that are reaching the end of their service life. A rigid spending cap puts all of that at risk. Think of the things that residents, businesses, and the county government have jointly experienced. We're in this with you when it comes to inflation. We have rising electricity costs with no connection to inflation that we all have to pay. We have escalating food costs in our schools and for our programs that feed people in need that have risen beyond inflation. And fuel costs for all the county vehicles. Think of it, over 1,000 police vehicles hundreds and hundreds of school buses and county buses, as well as the rest of our transportation fleet, all of them using fuel whose prices are rapidly exceeding inflation. Also consider the cost shifts from the state to the county and from the feds to the county, including no FEMA money for damages from natural disasters. All this raises the cost of government. The state alone moved more than $30 million of pension responsibility from the state to the county over the last 2 years. That's not inflation, and that's not out of control spending. That's a new cost that we didn't have 2 years ago. They are add-ons that wind up starving funding for other programs. The potential ballot proposal is fiscally irresponsible. It would diminish the county's ability to serve and protect its residents and to educate our children. And just to put it in perspective, the county does not have a runaway tax rate. I will continue to share my favorite slide that shows how every one of our surrounding Maryland jurisdictions have property taxes that exceed ours. Frederick is $1.11. We're like $1.04, remember that. Howard is $1.33. Prince George's is $1.37. The only neighboring jurisdiction with a lower residential property tax than ours is the District of Columbia, where the residential tax rate is in fact 85 cents. But that's because their commercial tax rates start at $1.66 and go up to $1.89. Montgomery County's commercial tax rate is legally tied to the residential tax rate. So you can't raise taxes on commercial property without raising taxes on residential property. This is a problem. It's a problem that DC doesn't have, and it's a problem that Virginia doesn't have. Locking ourselves into a tax policy that ensures we'll have fewer resources to address our needs will put us at a competitive disadvantage relative to other jurisdictions whose tax rates are designed to meet the needs of their communities, not just social service needs, but also transportation and economic investment. And here's the thing, the county is in the strongest fiscal position we've been in a long time. After years of restraint, our debt service ratio has finally come down near the 10% policy guideline for the first time in 15 years. Our reserves, which never achieved the 10% target before I was in office, have now routinely exceeded the 10% target, being as high as 17% in 1 year. That took discipline and it took time to build. And now we have the capacity to address longstanding deficits while still protecting our AAA credit rating. An arbitrary cap would ignore that carefully built strength and prevent us from using it when our community needs it the most. I understand the impulse behind control of spending. Nobody wants to waste money, and that includes me. But a blunt cap tied to a general inflation rate isn't physical discipline. It's a chain. We'd end up paying more in the long run and shortchanging the residents who depend on county services every day. And in the end, it'll be particularly our children who bear the burden of this. I want to thank the Board of Elections President David Naiman and Larry Halloran for returning to my media briefing this week to look back on the primary election and forward to November's election cycle. We had none of the drama that you might expect given the unfounded allegations that our president leveled against the state of Maryland after mail-in ballots were replaced due to a vendor error. Speaking of the president, his effort to discredit our election processes continues. There was that speech he gave last week claiming the declassified documents shed light on election vulnerabilities. His continued efforts to obtain voter rolls and limit who can legally participate in elections are blatant attempts to control results. That's not something that will happen locally or in Maryland. We have a bipartisan effort working toward fair and transparent elections. You can learn more by visiting 777vote.org or get involved with an election judge. We're looking for election judges. You can ensure you're registered to vote in November, or you can request a mail-in ballot, which actually worked pretty well this time. It's been a tragic year for too many local families who've seen loved ones killed on our roads. There have already been 26 fatal crashes, including 9 pedestrians. We had 24 fatal crashes at this point last year. That is why we are working across the county to make our roads safer and work towards our Vision Zero goal of ending serious injuries and fatalities. Since July 2025, MCDOT has reduced speed limits on 33 roads, primarily in our residential areas. This builds on our larger effort that has seen speed limit reductions on more than 250 neighborhood streets since 2021. These changes are possible thanks to state legislation. House Bill 562, which allows us to set limits as low as 20 miles per hour and in some cases 15 miles an hour on local roadways. Lowering speed limits is an essential step in changing the culture of our neighborhood roads. Our streets should be community spaces where residents feel safe walking. The dogs they were going for a run is a safe thing you can do, or riding a bike. This is especially vital during the summer months when more children are outdoors and playing. The data is undeniable. A pedestrian struck at 30 miles an hour has a 40% chance of serious injury or death. But at 20 miles per hour, that risk drops significantly to 10%. That data comes from the Maryland Highway Safety Office. Our efforts aren't limited to neighborhood streets. We're also partnering with the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration to lower speeds on some of the major corridors by the end of this August. Beyond signs, MCDOT is implementing traffic calming features like speed bumps, curb extensions, and safe crossings, which have been shown to reduce pedestrian crashes by 44%. The majority of these neighborhood speed reductions are driven by requests from residents like you. If you believe your streets need a traffic engineering investigation for speed limit reduction, I encourage you to reach out to our team at trafficops@montgomerycountymd.gov. By slowing down, we can prevent tragedies and save lives. I want to close with a few fun weekend reminders. I want to touch on a few events to help remind the media and the public about what's going on this week. This is Maryland Buy Local Week. It runs through Monday, July 27th. Everyone's encouraged to buy local, from produce to meat to beverages or dining out at restaurants that are committed to buying local ingredients. There's even a contest that the state is holding right now for photography and food lovers based on buying local. You can visit marylandsbest.maryland.gov to learn more about that. That leads perfectly into the annual farm tour and harvest sale happening Saturday and Sunday. Anyone can explore participating farms located across the county. Take a self-guided tour or use Visit Montgomery's Adventure Planner app to guide you along the way. The tour is free and a great way to learn more about our ag reserve and the businesses that thrive here. Tickets for the very first Taste of Burtonsville are on sale now. Starting at 11 a.m. on Saturday, July 25th, you can experience the flavors of Burtonsville at what promises to be a delicious event. 10 restaurants are participating. In addition to food, there will be live music and family entertainment in store. The East County Regional Service Center and the Greater Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce are hosting this event, which will take place in the parking lot between Restaurant 198, which is located at 15540 Old Columbia Pike in Burtonsville. Don't miss this opportunity to visit Burtonsville and support our local restaurant owners. All in all, that's a wrap for today. I hope you had a great week. I hope you survived the heat, and I'll be back again next week.